Good day. We continue with business objectives. We've talked about profit maximization, which is one of our business objectives. We said in the previous class about profit maximization. It means our marginal cost must equal to our marginal revenue. That is for profit maximization. And for a profit maximizer, look at this graph. I'm just going to quickly do a review about profit maximization. Then we'll go on to today's topic, which is revenue maximization. For a profit maximizer, they usually produce at a level of output OA, and to sell at the highest possible price, which is at OE. So for a profit maximizing firm, it will produce at OA and sell at OE. That is profit maximizer. So for profit maximizer, it's always a marginal cost equals to marginal revenue. I think that is done. So we go to revenue maximization, which is another objective for a firm. So one theory that uses the concept of divorce of ownership from control is the theory of revenue maximization. So before we go into revenue maximization, what does divorce of ownership from control means? When we talk about divorce of ownership from control, it simply means that the owners of the business are likely not to be part of decision makers. They appoint directors and managers to take decisions about any business objective. That is what divorce of ownership from control is. So the owners of the business become a separate entity from the business. So they appoint managers or directors to handle the operations. That is what divorce of ownership and control means. So when we talk about revenue maximization, for revenue maximization, it means the business or the firm is targeting large amount of sales. That is what revenue maximization is for. So let's read anyway. In this theory, it is assumed that the objective of managers is to maximize total revenue. And what is total revenue? Price multiplied by the quantity sold. So the aim here, the objective here is to sell as much as possible. So, to revenue for the firm, subject to a profit satisficing constraint. When I'm talking about profit satisficing simply means that the profit made by the firm it's enough to make the shareholders or the owners of the business or the firm to be happy. That is what profit satisficing is. It is not the same as profit maximization. For profit maximization, it simply means that the firm is making its objective as making the highest possible profit within the industry. That is profit maximization. But for profit satisficing, it simply means that the profit made by the firm is enough to make the shareholders happy. That is what profit satisficing is. So the larger the sales revenue of the firm, the higher is likely to be the pay and prestige of senior managers. A company that has twice the value of sales of another competing company would presumably pay its directors and managers more than its smaller rival. Revenue maximization and the size of the company are therefore a way for managers to justify their rewards. So for revenue maximization, because there's what we call the divorce of ownership control. So if there's divorce of ownership control, it means the directors and the managers are the ones setting the target, and the target is revenue maximization. So as soon as the firm is able to make more revenue than its competitors, then the senior managers or the directors can justify an increment in their pay, an increment in their reward. So most of the time, revenue maximization helps to justify a pay rise for managers. That is what revenue maximization is there. So for revenue maximization, so how do we produce for revenue maximization? Like I said, total revenue will be maximized when marginal revenue is zero. So for revenue maximization, it means our marginal revenue must be equal to zero. That is what revenue maximization is about. So for revenue maximizers, they produce at OB and sell at OF. For revenue maximizers, they produce at OB and sell at OF. That is revenue maximization. So it means our marginal revenue equals to zero. Our marginal revenue will be equal to zero. That is revenue maximization. If there's any question about revenue maximization, we can still talk further about it, maybe down in the comment section. But note that for revenue maximization, it means the owners of the business are detached from the business objective. So it means the directors and the managers take charge, and when they take charge, they want to sell the highest possible product within the industry. And when they are able to sell the highest possible product within the industry, it simply means revenue maximization, and they will be able to justify an increment in their pay. For profit maximization, when we talk about profit maximization again, it's It's just a recap. If we talk about profit maximization, it's simply in the interest of owners of the business and the employees of the business. But for revenue maximization, based on what we read now, it's simply an interest. It's simply the interest of managers and directors to justify their pay because they are able to sell more than their competitors. So that is revenue maximization. Then we go into sales volume maximization. Sales volume maximization is not the same as revenue maximization, though. But we can't talk about revenue maximization without talking about the amount of sales we do. So that means when we talk about sales maximization, we're simply talking about the volume of what we sold. For revenue maximization, it's talking about the amount we made in sales. So that's the difference between revenue maximization and revenue and sales. Sales talks about the volume, revenue talks about the amount sold. So for revenue maximization, sales volume maximization, I'm going to read. An alternative theory is that firms aim for sales volume maximization. The aim is to maximize the number of products they sell. As with revenue maximization, it can be argued that sales volume is a measure of the size of a firm. Managers and directors can then justify the rewards they take from the firm by pointing to the sales they have achieved. So for sales volume maximization, we're talking about how big or small the firm is. So if a firm is able to sell the highest possible products within the industry, then the managers and directors can use that as justification for an increment or performance of their job. So for sales volume maximization, it means we want to sell the highest possible products in terms of volume more than our competitors. That is sales volume maximization. And for sales volume maximization, it has to be for the graph. It will be for sales volume maximization. We produce at OC and sell at OG. We produce at OC, sell at OG. That is sales volume maximization. What does that simply imply? We want to produce the highest possible within the graph. We want to produce the highest possible, which is at OC, and sell at the lowest possible, which is at OG. So for sales volume maximization, our average cost must be equal to our average revenue, or our total cost must be equal to our total revenue. For profit maximization, our marginal cost must be equal to our marginal revenue, and our total revenue must be higher in terms of when compared, must be the highest when compared to the total cost. That is for profit maximization. For revenue maximization, our marginal revenue must be equal to 0. For revenue maximization, our marginal revenue must be equal to 0. And for the last one, which is sales volume maximization, our average cost must be equal to average revenue, or our total revenue must be equal to our total revenue must be equal to our total cost. Get it again? Profit maximization means our marginal revenue, our marginal cost equals to our marginal revenue. That is profit maximization. For sales revenue maximization, our marginal revenue must be equal to 0. It must all be 0. And for sales volume maximization, our average cost must be equal to our average revenue, or our total revenue must be equal to our total cost. Thank you. So that's all about our objective of a business. The first objective of a business is profit maximization, which we talked about, making the highest possible profit within the industry. The second objective is revenue maximization, selling the highest possible, making the highest sales within the industry. And the last one is sales volume maximization, selling the highest possible in terms of quantity within the industry. So here we have the formula for different business objectives. For profit, I think I said it earlier, for profit maximizers, the level of output will be at marginal revenue equals to marginal cost. For revenue maximizer, it's always marginal revenue must be equals to 0. And for sales volume maximizer, it is average cost equals to average revenue, or total cost equals to total revenue. Thank you once again. So this is all about profit. This is all about business objectives. So the next class we're going to talk about divorce of ownership from control. Thank you.